Hey everyone! Welcome back to Story Hive. If you love diving into amazing tales, crazy confessions, and heartwarming moments from Reddit, you're in the right place. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you never miss an update. Let's jump into today's story. Hello Reddit! I'm using a throwaway account because I need some advice on a complicated situation I'm facing. Please excuse any mistakes. I just want to get this out there. A bit about me: I'm a 43-year-old man and the younger of two siblings. I'll try to provide a chronological account to give you a full picture. My brother Michael, who is 45, growing up, he could do no wrong in my parents' eyes. When he got bad grades, they would cheer him up and help him improve, whereas I was always met with disappointment, even if my grades were decent. For example, he got a new car and a big party for his high school graduation, while I received $300 and a pat on the back. Michael wasn't a bad brother, but we mostly did our own things. I didn't complain much, but I felt the need to move out and explore the world on my own. I went to university in another city and earned my MBA. In 7 years after graduation, I landed a job back in our hometown. During this time, I had minimal contact with my family, except for birthdays and holidays. My brother, not being the brightest academically, barely graduated from high school. He dropped out of college, and my parents helped him set up a small hardware shop. I was happy for him, but focused on my own life. Around this time, I started dating Emily, who was 20 then. We met in college and were both from the same city. When we moved back home, we moved in together, found jobs, and focused on building our life. During the holidays in 2008, I introduced Emily to my family. They were surprisingly warm and receptive, making me feel more loved than I had in years. I noticed Michael looking at her a lot during the gathering, but thought nothing of it. However, he started visiting my apartment more frequently, from once every 4 months to almost daily. It became intrusive, especially since he came in the evenings when Emily and I were trying to unwind after work. I eventually had to set boundaries, leading to a big fight with my parents. Michael apologized and reduced his visits to once every other month on weekends, which was more manageable. In 2011, I proposed to Emily, and we announced our engagement to the family. My parents were happy, but Michael just shook my hand and left the small party I had organized. He disappeared for a couple of weeks after that. We got married in 2013, and Michael brought a plus one to the wedding, a woman named Laura. They got married 11 months later, in 2014. My marriage was going well. We had our first daughter, Olivia, in 2015, and our second, Chloe, in 2017. In 2016, Laura messaged me that Michael was obsessed with Emily, and that was the biggest reason for their separation. I apologized to her, wished her the best. I also talked to Emily and asked her about her interactions with Laura. She told me that Laura was always a bit cold and distant towards her from the start. I decided to confront my brother in front of my family and asked him why he was destroying his life because of his obsession with my wife. He was blindsided by that question and denied everything. We had a massive argument that ended with me telling my brother that he was no longer welcome in my house. Both my parents and Emily talked to me and convinced me that no matter what, he was still family. So, for everyone's sake, I decided to be amicable. It seemed like he was genuinely working on himself, and we went on with our lives. Fast forward to 2018. I can still recall that day vividly. It was the 25th of July. I was running multiple errands while my wife took both our kids to see their grandparents. It was sometime after lunch that I got a call from my father telling me to come to their home. He had a lot of anger in his tone. As soon as I entered, I noticed a lot of tension in the air. My wife was a crying mess, and my parents were trying to console her. Some of my extended family members were there as well. I asked what happened, only to be accused of being the one who committed assault. I was shocked and confused. They claimed that at a party a couple of weeks back I had assaulted a girl and then texted her not to tell anyone about it, or there would be consequences. I had known this girl, Amanda, for some time. We went to high school together, and she was part of a larger friends group that I occasionally hung out with. According to her, after the party, which was at a club, I followed her to her car and assaulted her there. She shared screenshots of the alleged conversation with my wife and told her this entire tale. My father slapped me hard, and my parents told me they never wanted to see my face again. Emily was angry and said that we were done. I tried to convince all of them that I never did that, but it fell on deaf ears. I was basically kicked out of their house and told that neither Emily nor the kids would be returning. My father would be coming over to take their stuff from my apartment. When my father came, I begged and pleaded, but he packed a couple of bags and told me never to contact them again. He said he would personally hand me over to the cops if I did. By evening, Michael had shared the screenshots and all the details to our extended family group on WhatsApp, from which I was unanimously kicked out. The next few days I even had people from my friend group calling me to say they were disgusted with me and never to contact them again. I was a mess during that time. I couldn't eat, I couldn't sleep, and I couldn't even work properly. My boss also heard the rumors going around but couldn't do much until he saw some police action against me. He advised me to leave the organization on my own to keep my record intact and said he would ensure that I wouldn't have to even serve my notice period. I tried to argue my case, but he told me that if the cops came knocking on my door, I would be kicked out anyway, and in such a scenario the gravity of the case would mean I wouldn't get severance and my record would be tarnished. I grudgingly agreed to his request and left the organization. In the next few days, in mid-August, while I was still wallowing in my misery, I received two documents from the court. One was a letter of disannulment, and the other was divorce papers. I was quite drunk, but I went to my parents' place anyway, only for my brother to come and beat me up. I had blood coming out of my face by the time he was done with me, and I was barely able to stand. My parents and my wife looked at me from afar but did nothing. I managed to get myself up after some time, a crying mess, and realized that I had lost everything and everyone I knew. I stayed holed up in my apartment for the duration of the divorce. It went as amicably as it could. As I was jobless, my now ex-parents stated they would pay for the children so I didn't have to pay child support or any alimony. By January 2019, I was divorced, but trying to pick up the pieces of what was once my life was hard. During this time, I also felt like confronting Amanda, but the more I thought about it, the more I realized it could have made matters worse for me due to the women-centric laws in my country, which meant one phone call and I would be looking at 5 to 6 years in jail. In February 2019, I got into a major accident and spent a good part of 5 weeks in recovery. The staff told me that they contacted my emergency number, which was still Emily at that point, and she hung up. No one showed up. Once I recovered, I realized that I had spent through a good part of my savings and needed to get back on my feet, if not for anything else, to have a roof over my head. However, I realized that I wouldn't be able to do anything in the place I was at. So I sold all my furniture, paid my remaining dues for the rented accommodation, and decided to start from scratch in a different place. I moved to a city 2 hours away and tried to get a job for some time, but to no avail. I also used to drink myself silly, and thoughts of offing myself were recurring. Waking up after seeing a nightmare in a cold sweat almost became the norm for 4 months. This went by until I ran into an old acquaintance, David from college. He was the quiet kid during that time and didn't really talk to anyone. Seeing him after so many years was odd, as he spotted me out from the crowd and called my name. We greeted each other and talked about our lives for a bit. I told him I was in the city looking for a job. He told me he had just quit and was planning on setting up a management consulting firm of his own. He then invited me for a drink later on. After a lot of talking about our professional lives, he offered me an opportunity to work with him as he needed a couple of people who knew their stuff. At this point, I thought I needed to work my ass off to get my mind off these thoughts, so I agreed. But I told him I wasn't in a good shape mentally and physically, and that I had a history of being unstable. He assured me that he would help me get back on track and keep me away from any distractions. In April 2019, I got started, and the work was a good distraction from everything I was going through. I worked hard and with dedication. During this time, David's firm flourished, and I was promoted to a senior role. I also began picking up my health, both mental and physical. I stopped drinking, and my nightmares became less frequent. I also made some friends along the way, and for the first time in almost a year, I felt a sense of belonging. I stopped feeling alone and empty. Around this time, I also decided to check up on my old friends, hoping to reconcile with them. It took me some time to contact them. I finally heard from them last year when I called and told them what had happened. They were shocked, and one of them said that this was out of character for me, as I was always kind to everyone. I didn't want to drag the conversation on much longer, so I just thanked them and cut it short. I also received a call from my ex-wife around the same time. She told me she knew the truth, that Amanda had been lying all along, but her parents wouldn't let her go back to me. She was doing this at my request. I told her that I didn't need her sympathy and hung up. After that, I ignored her attempts to contact me. Eventually, she stopped. About a year ago, my old college friends told me that they wanted to help me reunite with my parents if I was interested. I didn't know how I felt about it, but I agreed to meet them and talk it over. They told me they wanted to reach out and help me with a job, a place to stay and support, but my ex-wife had blocked them. I told them I didn't want to re-enter their lives and would rather focus on my new life. They respected my decision and continued helping me with advice and support. They also offered to help me relocate to a better city if I wanted, and I've taken up that offer. Now I'm living in a better place, with a decent job and a small circle of friends who support me. I still keep in touch with my old friends and thank them for all their help. I wanted to share this with Reddit and see if anyone else has experienced something similar. Thanks for tuning in to today's Reddit story. If you enjoyed it, please give this video a thumbs up and share it with your friends. And if you haven't already, make sure to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you never miss out on more amazing stories. See you next time.